Greetings, friends. This is Janet ESP with Philosophy. One of my supporters, my sovereign sister Rose, wanted to know my thoughts on the video in the link below, called Larken, Rose, and Adam Kokesh on Anarchast. So I felt inspired to do a short essay about it, also incorporating what I feel are edgy, relevant topics in the truth community. So I present to you my first current event video on politics, human drama, and natural law. Hopefully in the future these will be more timely and less verbose, so I won't have to talk so fast. It is mentally easy to become polarized, while it is more challenging to be holistic, and in this case to see both sides of the Larken, Rose, Adam Kokesh debate without contracting into sides. Larken, Rose, the author of The Most Dangerous Superstition, correctly points out how supporting the political system through voting and election, as ex-Marine Adam Kokesh desires to do, is, in the philosophical sense, antithetical to the anarchist movement and contradictory to the principles of freedom and truth. Yet Kokesh believes that by running for president through the Libertarian campaign, he can awaken many to the principles of anarchy and the illusion of authority. After he is elected president, Kokesh plans to resign and abolish the government as a custodian, thus revealing that his intentions were never to be part of the political system or become any type of ruler in the first place, but to use it as a means for its own destruction, saying things like Adam for not president. I think Adam deserves more credit than Larken is giving, for a political campaign is actually a brilliant marketing strategy to sell Adam's anarchist book Freedom, getting the message out to the greater public. In this context, his presidential campaign is a clever infiltration and hijacking of mainstream media, as Adam is using drama, satire, playing the devil's advocate, folding the system against itself to awaken our zombie nation. And Larken seems to take such a ploy quite literally, being locked within a purely rational framework which does not cohere with this type of social activism, artistry, and paradoxical play, which isn't necessarily being contradictory or hypocritical. Adam is the court gesture poking at the king, the wild card in a stage play, the anomaly in the political matrix. Yet, Larken admits that being part of the political system to mock it and reveal the circus show that it is could be an acceptable and potentially fruitful plan for the anarchist.
The only thing I would have any respect for as far as political action would be somebody basically joining the circus to make fun of it, to have a campaign that mocks the entire notion that whoever gets the most buttons pressed next to their name has the divine right to rule, and basically just using the attention you would get for having a campaign to point out that government is inherently bogus, its laws are inherently bogus, democracy is inherently bogus, and to go for the underlying problem, which is the belief in authority, and the belief specifically in political authority, and all the things that try to pretend that is legitimate and actually bestows upon a ruling class the right to rule.
While this does seem to be what Adam is doing, Larken claims it is not.
You're not spreading the message of liberty. You're spreading the message of we need a different savior on the throne. And in your talks and in your book, you spread the message of liberty. In your campaign, you spread something diametrically opposite to that, which is the notion that we want a legislative, procedural, electoral, democratic, constitutional dissolving of a ruling class. No.
And his evidence for this is Adam's website and its failure to list the philosophical principles at the get-go, which seems to instead promote the political process itself as if it were legitimate. But Adam's endgame is clearly put on his website, that he desires to dissolve government and resign, which seems to fit in line with Larken's own justification for using such a strategy. We will get to where it doesn't fit later.
But legislative means of legislation. I'm not talking about passing any legislation. What I'm doing is declaring the federal government of no authority. That's also front and center on the website to say that the federal government will be declared of no authority whatsoever. None of its laws will be enforceable immediately upon the signing of the executive order.
Adam seems to be perfect for this role, producing activist content all the time, already up to 1,500 videos, including political stunts, debates, direct interaction with the public, and multiple arrests for civil disobedience, like loading a shotgun in DC.
We will not be silent. We will not obey. We will not allow our government to destroy our humanity. We are the final American Revolution. See you next Independence Day.
His ability to talk to the average person about anarchy, stepping down to people's level, even the cops, with grace, wit, and tact is no easy task and is commendable.
Alright. When'd you get out? November 30, 2006. You never forget that day, right? You prize service?
No, sir.
Oh, don't call me sir, I was a sergeant. But hey, I wrote this book while I was in jail for civil disobedience.
Okay.
And you call it Lessons Learned the Hard Way, but it's a lot of stuff that I learned from the Marines as well.
Okay.
And I think you'd appreciate it. And it's very important about for what it says about police officers as well, because police officers serve some very important functions in society, but it's very unfortunate that in doing so and in trying to serve the people, we have the government between us. you know, where you want to serve and protect, you want to provide legitimate services, but you have to, fundamentally, you work for politicians. And politicians don't work for the people. That's a myth, right? You know that. So what we're trying to do with the message in this book and with everything that I do in speaking out about this and talking about freedom is see if we can get more direct people-to-people connections, people serving people without this, violent monopoly of government coming in between us. Right. So I hope you know that I'm broadcasting and all that, and I'm just doing that in a spirit of accountability and sharing my experience on the road here. So.
He's quite effective using the skills of language, likability, and debate with an egalitarian method. Adam puts himself out there at a very personable level, is bold and courageous, and thus becomes an easy target for the attack of inactive anarchists who prefer to hide in the sidelines and throw tomatoes, so they can never be criticized, protected in their ivory tower, echo chamber of like-minded friends, in the impersonal screen of social media, harboring on the imperfections on those who take action instead of taking action themselves and letting go of this ideal perfection. Larken isn't that type of activist. He's very active, but this is just something that I've seen in the community. Now, Larken suggests that if Adam was sincere, he would come out and say that he is not going to win the election and that the whole thing is a joke. But if Adam is going to play the role, he has to be committed to go all the way for it to have any meaning and be effective at all. Adam desires to follow a similar campaign to Ron Paul, who helped many individuals wake up from the corruption of government, and who have today become full-fledged anarchists. Without seriousness, Adam's campaign would be a passing stunt, a meme, a joke for a day, and people would move on. So Adam must play to win and act as if he can to truly make an impact. But the actual win should be taken in the correct context. Winning is simply spreading the anarchist message far and wide, and the vote is merely a public statement that we are done with government. Now, this will require a lot of self-mastery on the part of Adam to delicately balance seriousness and lightheartedness as to not lose sight of the real goal, which is to use the political scheme as a means, not an ends. For too much seriousness can backfire and make him forgetful to his original intent, which we will get into later. In a sense, Adam is being an anarchist in a politician's clothing, which humorously reveals the more common existence of a wolf in sheep's clothing. And so the important question here is if playing the Trojan horse in this way ethical? We will elaborate on this in a sec, but to Larken it is not ethical because it befuddles anarchist principles, spreading half-truths and mixed messages, such as the myth that government could actually end with a vote. It is obviously easy to criticize Adam's strategy from a puritanical philosophical perspective, an easy target for Larken, who understands the principles better, as Adam is a libertarian who tends to vacillate between anarchist and minarchist perspectives. More on that soon. However, it is important to differentiate between Adam's philosophy and his strategy, as his philosophy is based on his book, Freedom, which reflects important basic truths such as that taxation is theft, self-ownership is real, anarchy means no rulers, and that government is immoral. Now, by seeing the positive Adam's chosen strategy, this could be seen as an ends justify the means argument, but only if ethics weren't taken into consideration, for the question here is whether the means Adam has implemented ethical or not. Self-promotion as an anarchist and activist is not necessarily unethical, as generating financial support to spread the message of anarchy without compromising to the system is an incredibly important task. So we shouldn't be so quick to judge Adam as being an egotistical narcissist because of the attention he attracts himself. The deeper question is whether it is ethical to use the status system to spread the message of anarchy. In the pure sense, being part of the system in any capacity is unethical. Employment, corporations, taxes, voting, complying with status regulations, etc., since such a system is based in false reality and an immoral authority. For even if you use money and imaginary creation from the banksters, you are supporting war in the ruling class. Yet, this is not enough of a refined perspective, moral perspective, taking in consideration that the system is forced upon us against our will, entangled with survival, and is where the aggregate consciousness operates through, the consciousness we need to help evolve. Thus, being part of the system is not unethical in the bigger picture and is also context dependent. There are two very unethical actions that should not be taken in system participation, and this is because they directly violate another person's rights and through order following, and that is joining the military and police. On that note, it helps to understand Adam's psychology of why his activism is so radical. As a former Marine in the Iraq War, he realized how the virtues of self-sacrifice, altruism, courage, and taking a stand for truth and freedom were grotesquely twisted into their exact opposites. American soldiers, the so-called patriots, were merely the terrorists of the Middle East. This is an incredibly traumatizing experience, and we can understand why he would want to turn the evil machine in on itself, as once a year in the death machine of the military-industrial complex. In a way, Adam is attempting to achieve some cosmic balance, justice, and purpose from his past experience as now an activist, using the real virtues of courage and self-sacrifice to try to make a change. Going back to the question of ethics and political participation, the reality is that any participation in the voting or political system, even paying taxes, does nothing to actually feed the system itself in terms of sustenance, and is merely the entertainment, mockery, and added hardship to human slaves. For example, taxes are that yearly reminder during the season of sacrifice that you were owned, a little extra weight for our burdens, when the banksters could care less about your money. They make it out of nothing, literally. It's all dark sorcery, folks. If everyone withdrew their participation in the political system, it wouldn't even really matter, as there was never consent by the people in the first place. It is merely a tool of conditioning to false reality and hypnosis through a meaningless ritual. The system is entirely owned and dominated and has been since the dawn of civilization, and we don't have any power over it at all. They merely make us think we do, that added level of humor for them. Media and politics is just a game with no real content, mocking the stupidity of man who's completely delusional about how reality works. As Larken points out, the president has no power, and neither does any campaign or voting process. What the controllers want happens. Political parties are just that. Parties with no real work or governance takes place, just the illusion of it, obfuscating who is really in control. Additionally, pandering to people's lower consciousness and their need for ego, wealth, status, and power, the fuel of the control system. While philosophical principles need to be refined, which we will get into, we must also consider that we live in immoral, unjust conditions of human slavery in which we cannot execute our principles in an absolutist manner. Unfortunately, varying degrees of compromise and hypocrisy are required just to live and learn, evolve, and accomplish the task we set out for ourselves, including ending human slavery, the great work. Waking up to truth is difficult, because the absolutist clear and distinct line between right and wrong, truth and falsity, is metaphysically discovered and defined, while our actions cannot always be executed with the same level of clarity and definition, presenting some level of dissonance, as we live in a system that is opposed to the principles of truth and morality. All actions are thus compromised to some degree. We have to each day do our best to minimize this compromise, but not fall into self-loathing because of it. We should not allow the dissonance and contradictory life conditions to discourage us, but to be part of the energy needed to learn truth and freedom and to take action and speak out. As freedom fighters, we're not attempting to stop human slavery from happening. It has already happened and has been happening in the endless cycles on this planet. The school ground for the experiential education of morality for the evolution of human consciousness, in which through the manifest polarity, we can recognize the true essence of reality. The good, the true, the beautiful. We are already in crisis, as the global dictatorship will only get worse. FEMA concentration camps, martial law, technocratic smart cities, and this makes waking up humanity in the masses incredibly important for our collective fate, which can make fighting about our respective strategies and levels of understanding less important, as the real divide is between us and those who find human slavery legitimate, which is not in their right. This point elucidated in Mark Passio's latest seminar at the Truth Mind Reality Conference titled Duress, Dissidence, and Deadly Force. Now, as an important side note, another point from Mark Passio's seminar. It is in our right to not compromise with the system at all, using the self-defense principle of whatever force is necessary to stop violence of duress and subjugation, including deadly force. But because our reality is so twisted, doing the right thing, in this case self-defense against the violations of government, has negative consequences. Although in the spiritual realm, there will not be negative consequences for the soul. Thus, doing what is within our right may do less good overall towards the great work, in which we are much more effective when we are alive. Once we recognize that our minds and souls are free, our participation in the system has no real hold on us and can become a tool. While some of Adam's philosophical notions may be incorrect, we cannot fault Adam for not taking action, as he is an activist on fire, and sometimes the person who takes more action is less philosophically inclined, while the more philosophically inclined person takes less action. There are strengths and faults to both. Because the conditions of humanity are this bad, Any and all effort to end slavery should be supported to some degree. Not to support their errors necessarily, but the spirit and effort behind. Insofar, Adam Kokesh does seem genuine and sincere about his efforts. We need to see the bigger picture and the war we are currently in, instead of being so critical to the point of condemnation, fueling petty wars within our own community that act as a distraction.
Now, this is something we should be focusing our attention on.
Okay, so this is one of the most horrifying things that has happened recently in Washington, D.C., this gun control rally. And this is a complete destruction to freedom, to our right to defend ourselves, the destruction of the sacred masculine. So in response to violence, we should actually disarm ourselves and make us incapable of responding to violence with force. This is totally ridiculous. If this doesn't make you angry, you're not alive. And as you can see in this news video, there is a dialectic here, because it's only gun control for the people, for the masses. So, they got to be controlled. But these people on this side, they're the tyrants, the military, the police, the government. They should have, unlimited rights with guns. And, master-slave dialectic. This is worldview schism. The left brain and the right brain are at war. And these people, they want to be slaves. They do not have the right to believe that. The solution to the violence of these shootings at schools or other places is for people to be armed, is for teachers to have guns. You need more self-defense if there's more violence being done.
There's a huge platform here because the state has made itself so disgustingly relevant in our lives.
Truth is a learning process, and there will always be people at different levels of understanding of philosophical principles. Absolute principles exist, and so do relative levels of understanding. Libertarians and minarchists are rightfully critical of statists, the controlled left dialectic, and the violence of government. Anarchists are additionally critical of libertarians and minarchists for desiring the oxymoron of a voluntary government, voluntary authority, seeking political reform in an entirely co-opted system, and seeing some value in the erroneous notion of collective action. Natural law anarchists are even additionally critical of general anarchists for not understanding anarchy in terms of consciousness, mind control, and natural law, which even Larken has only demonstrated partially, revealing where his own principles can be refined. The end of government is more than understanding its nature to be immoral, but understanding that our lower nature and ego identification is immoral too, as the willful rejection of truth and natural law. The ending of slavery involves active evolution of our individual consciousness, with will, care, and courage for truth and morality to leave the old imprisoned systems behind of religion, money, government, scientism, and the New Age, to grow into the truth of self, natural law, and what actually exists metaphysically and conditionally. In addition to being created by our false beliefs, government is also created by our fear, apathy, and selfishness, and the egoic doctrine of moral relativism. When we don't care about truth and morality, we get slavery. Government is not simply a bunch of crooks taking over in which we must gain our power back, as the phenomenon is much more spiritually demanding than that, as the master-slave dialectic is a manifestation of our own imbalanced consciousness. Thus, we must become holistic to transcend the mind control of the control system and its false dialectics, as to come to know the objective difference between right and wrong, between the non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle, the sacred feminine and sacred masculine, to be accountable to moral law, which exists objectively in nature. We must also understand and develop our true self beyond ego identification and worldview schism. Even the principles of voluntarism, self-ownership, and non-aggression can fall short when not metaphysically anchored with natural law, as until this understanding is attained, humans will attempt to mimic the workings of nature, seeing a collectivist system of control a necessity and legitimate, when in reality there is only self-government under natural law. Now it is time to be a little critical of Adam and to consider what Larken is saying. Contrary to his book, Adam has some philosophical issues that could cause serious problems in his campaign.
We see in the current state of marijuana legalization that political action has immediately caused a reduce in the coercion, the violence of the state, in the most offensive form of it in the drug war.
For one, like most libertarians, Adam seems to be naive about political reform, saying the drug laws were reduced due to the political process of libertarians, failing to comprehend the fact that any political change is only made to suit the ruling class. These man-made law changes are the engineered, self-serving artificial freedoms given to the masses. In this case, legalized drugs are more profitable for the ruling class in the open market. Minarchists, libertarians, and voluntarianists like Adam desire the contradiction of a voluntary government as a peaceful coalition of non-coercion. If that were the case, then what would separate government from a business or any group of individuals uniting together to achieve a common goal? The practical running of anything in society does not require government the use of violence. It merely requires action within natural law boundary conditions. Government is by definition the artificial right for some people to rule over others with violence and fake laws. Government means to govern other people. Keyword other. One of its false tenets is the collectivist notion that certain individuals can represent or take action on behalf of other individuals. This is the ideological basis for what the entire political scheme advertises, aka representative democracy, which could never be true. A sovereign person represents himself as he cannot abdicate his own moral responsibility, and he can only take individual action, which is either in harmony with natural law or not. Each individual is responsible for his actions and cannot take the actions of another, especially collective action. Representation in a pyramid scheme will always be violent and based on a master-slave hierarchy, as even when the majority rules, the rights of the minority are violated. But Adam already knows all this. We do not need controllers or system engineers or politicians to fabricate order and security at the collective level in the organization called government. It is fear that clings to collectivism for safety when ignorant of cosmic order, and that the system of nature is intelligent, moral, and divine, and that the individual is the principal unit of reality in which control should be self-control. Here, the entire political process obfuscates individual sovereignty with the false notion that we should have power and control over other people. If Adam believes that he can have power, control, and authority to dissolve government and reallocate the sources government has stolen from us as a custodian, he is falling into their trap, besides naively thinking that government is actually operated by human consent, in which such a possibility exists.
And in that sense, yes, I am asking for the authority and control over the remaining physical assets of the federal government to go in like a bankruptcy agent. And I said, do you really mean authority and control? And he said, well, I had to use the example, like if you see a mugger and a mugger steals somebody's wallet and drops it on the ground, is it right, is it within voluntarious principles to pick it up and give it back to the person it was stolen from? Would that be authority and control? And he said, yes, in a sense, that would be authority and control. So in that sense, yes, as returning the stolen property of the federal government in a peaceful, orderly manner, yes, I think I am asking for that authority and control.
Now, it is possible Adam is saying all this to be part of the stunt, as to reinforce the fact that government has stolen from us. But taking Adam seriously, government is based on might makes right, immoral power and coercion, underneath the elaborate political facade, which is an empty show. Also, the stolen property is mainly money, which has no real existence in the first place. This is all mind control. If the endgame of Adam's presidency is to give him authority and control of how government is dissolved, then he's clearly missing the mark. But I don't feel he's doing this purposely to deceive others. Maybe just confused here. Adam owns his own body, he owns his mind and soul, and his property, and that's that. And that's what he should manage and control. He's not an extension of the American people. There is no action that he can take on my behalf. The individual is the fundamental unit of reality. The correction to global government, since our problem here is way beyond federal government, is not local government, but the evolution of consciousness out of the collectivist belief system itself. This is where Adam's ego can be tempted into the personal agendas of self-aggrandizement, moving him away from his original intent to spread the message of freedom, since the nature of the political system feeds off our lower selves. It is a high-level and high-skilled game Adam is playing, and if he doesn't have the respective level of self-mastery, playing this game will play him back. Adam is attempting to co-opt a very old dialectical system of dark sorcery, a worthy cause, but the system has much more experience with co-opting, unfortunately to a genius degree. For the political structure, by necessity, tempts ego, pride, and status as the microcosm to worldwide corruption, being diametrically opposed to natural law. Thus, there is a correspondence between the egotism of the politician and the poverty and war of populations. While Adam discusses how COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program, infiltrates groups to cause division, the division he accuses Larken of creating, the infiltration of supporting agents should be more feared. those who befriend Adam to help him increase his status, profit, and popularity. The darkest war is the war within. Challenges like that of Larken keep us on our toes, while egoic resonance of our so-called friends imprisons us to our subjectivity and blind spots. So hopefully this dialogue with Larken will have been productive for Adam, as a caution towards potential future temptations, as there is always pride before the fall, and the activist must fully confront his dark side, or his dark side will wipe him out. If Adam has naive ideas about his presidential campaign to be anything other than a clever marketing scheme for selling his book, Freedom, this will lead to disappointment. He must be a warrior with a strategy, using the role of politician as a tool, while not becoming it, if he is to maintain integrity and truly speak the message of freedom.
Okay, so I'm going to get into the human drama aspect for just a bit, and Adam and Larken have been participating on Steemit. Larken's post about Adam is here, and he's claiming that Adam is referring to any disagreements, particularly philosophical, to be trash-talking, attacking, and tearing him down. Larken is claiming Adam is acting like a politician and narcissist, demonizing the messenger. And however, if you watch the videos of their debate and everything Adam has to say, he does maintain his composure through the whole thing and, doesn't really say anything out of line. And he does have a defensive energy, which Larken is very critical of, yet Larken has brought that out because of this Facebook post where he does attack Adam. Okay, so here is the post that Larken Rose made on Facebook, in which it does appear that he is attacking Adam while he's in jail and can't defend himself. Larken says yuck, yuck, yuck many times about the donated money for Adam's bail being used to the Libertarian Party, which, according to Adam, is not what happened. And so it seems like Larken did not have all the information about that. And this is what happened, according to the campaign manager.
Those dollars have been set aside for the purpose of bail. Adam is making a stand against this egregious system of injustice. Bail money is still in the fundraising accounts and has not been released. A donation to the Libertarian Party in the amount of $6,000 will be released today from separate funds. Because the amount was the same, purposefully, there was confusion. As always, freedom and love to you all.
So this is what I think happened, is that Adam and his campaign manager were making a public statement to the DA that they were going to use the same amount of bail money for the Libertarian Party.
So going back to Larken's post on Steemit, I think it's unfair that he's saying it was emotional tantrum when Adam called him coward, and Adam called him a coward because he wrote that post while he was in jail and didn't, have all the facts. So anyways, it's like Larken's attacking him, then Adam's getting defensive, and then Larken's attacking at, Adam's defensiveness, which it's really unfair. And, the Steemit post is pretty long about that issue there. So it does really seem that Larken is taking personal shots at Adam, and I don't see that happening the other way around. Now, even if Adam did choose to use the bail money for the Libertarian Party for certain legitimate reasons, like if he didn't need bail money because the charges were dropped, then that would make sense, because that is what Adam is doing. He's never claimed to be doing anything other, and that is how he feels that he's supporting freedom, and people who support Adam are supporting the Libertarian Party. Now, if under those circumstances Adam were to use the bail money for himself, to buy himself a car, then yeah, that would be completely unethical. So I think that, Larken is not being able to differentiate Adam's philosophy and his strategy of using the political system, and by blurring those lines, he is attacking Adam in ways that kind of cut deep, that aren't just being objective.
In closing, I think that while Larken's philosophical points have value, he is being too harsh on Adam, as there is a difference between a critique and an attack, and Larken's post can ride that fine line of character assassination, when Adam hasn't really crossed any ethical lines here. While it is good to be critical to learn, it is not necessary to denigrate the efforts of others who aren't perfect and may still have some incorrect notions of reality, but are still trying to create positive change in a larger scale. When we take into consideration what Adam has done, our judgment should be more balanced. In terms of numbers, Adam is making an impact, which could ultimately lead many to Larken Rose's work, and hopefully to Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar. Why not encourage this? Is there nothing intriguing or at least refreshing about spreading the message of anarchy through the very system that opposes it? Hopefully his campaign will make an impact and open a door for those who are just beginning to wake up to question authority, discovering the true and eternal nature of our sovereignty. At the same time, Adam must confront the contradictions between his philosophical understanding and political campaign so that his strategy does not take over the philosophy as to create more corruption in himself, diluting the principles of anarchy. Ultimately, you cannot serve two masters, and a high-skilled game demands high skill in which you do not succumb to the temptations of the game. But even if Adam falls, this could be an important learning experience for him, to learn why ethical politics is an oxymoron. Love, truth, freedom, my friends.